Good morning, YouTube. My name is Mitchell Cotton. Welcome back to Morning Wood. And today I'm going to be going over the 5 quarterbacks that my ADPs differ from the masses. So basically where everyone else is taking these quarterbacks at, and then my ranking on them and where I would take these quarterbacks at. So no time to waste. We'll jump into it. The first one is Deshaun Watson. So his current ADP, he's going off as the quarterback 4. My ranking on him, I have him as the quarterback 10. And I kind of smile when I say that and laugh because I know people are going to call me nuts. Saying, oh my God, what are you doing? He was arguably a top 3 quarterback going off the board last year. And I know that I may be lower on Deshaun than just about anyone else alive, maybe. But I mean, it's just when you think about the impact of DeAndre Hopkins on that team, it's kind of shocking how much Deshaun Watson's production went into DeAndre Hopkins. Basically, I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins made Deshaun Watson, but a lot of the yards, a lot of the production and everything kind of supports that theory a little bit. So, I mean, losing DeAndre Hopkins, it's no surprise. You're losing arguably the best receiver in the game. I mean, you got Hopkins, Adams, Thomas, Julio, Hill. Top 5. I don't think anyone else is differing from that top 5 right there as far as just talent in the game in general. DeAndre Hopkins, arguably top 2, 3 of those guys. And 51% of all of Deshaun Watson's air yards last season went to DeAndre Hopkins. So Deshaun Watson on paper looks like he's great at the deep ball, and he is. He's a good deep ball thrower, but more than half of all of his completed air yards went to DeAndre Hopkins. And over 30% of his deep targets went to Hopkins too. I think he had 81 total deep targets, which was, I believe, top 10 in the league, but over 30% of those went to Hopkins. Now, while Hopkins didn't have a high ADOT, average depth of target, he mostly ran the shorter routes. When he did go deep, it completed so often because he's so good at the contested catch ball. When you combine the fact that 51% of all the air yards and it's 31%, but just over 30% of all of his deep targets went to Hopkins, strictly Hopkins, and now he's gone, you kind of start to worry. I mean, their best receiver now is going to be Brandon Cooks, who, I mean, if he can even stay healthy, like, is anyone that excited about Brandon Cooks this year in fantasy? I know I'm personally not. And, I mean, he's had like 5 concussions in his career. Like, I mean, the guy just can't seem to stay healthy. He gets a concussion every few weeks, it seems. Plus, the Texans were 19th in pass attempts per game last season. So they don't throw the ball a lot. They get what I guess you could call an upgrade at running back with David Johnson, even though he looks like he's running with a bowling ball on his back. Just slow and just doesn't look right. I don't know. I don't like Deshaun Watson this year. I am definitely not going to be going after Deshaun Watson. That does not mean I do not like him as a whole. I still have him as my QB 10, so I think he'll finish as a QB 1. You should obviously take Deshaun Watson. I just personally won't be targeting him. I'm not necessarily going to be avoiding him because I don't typically take QB until the 10th, 11th, 12th round-ish. And, I mean, if he's there, I'd take him, but there's no way he's going to be there. So the point that I'm making is that I would never – there's a couple quarterbacks you could reach for, I think. Really only 4 or 5. Deshaun Watson, to me, is not one of them. And so, yeah, I differ from the masses pretty greatly here. It's only 6 spots, and on the surface you may think, oh, only 6 spots. But when he's going as a top 5 QB and I have him as a back-end QB1, the difference in that 6 spots becomes a lot bigger than if it were like the 24th quarterback and the 30th quarterback. Like, nobody's splitting hairs over those guys. But in terms of the top 10 quarterbacks, it's massive. Number 2, a guy who I'm higher on than I believe anyone else, is Matthew Stafford. His current ADP, he's going off at 15. Not even a QB1. Guys are not taking him as their starting QB. I have him ranked as my quarterback 6. Yeah, 6. I have him finishing as a top 6 quarterback. I think it's definitely in his range of outcomes. And I understand, like I said, I might be higher on him than anyone else, but he gets all of his weapons back. I mean, free agency, has been nuts. A lot of guys are switching teams. A lot of quarterbacks are getting new receivers. A lot of the high-profile quarterbacks are getting new receivers. Guys that they need to work with, guys that they lost, like Deshaun Watson, losing arguably the best receiver in the league. Stafford gets all of his guys back. Galladay, Amendola, Hockenson, Marvin Jones. And then he adds likely the second, in most circles, the second best receiving back in the draft, DeAndre Swift. So if he gets all of his guys back, the reason why everyone's freaking out about the pandemic affecting the season is because they're not going to have summer camp, they're not going to have OTAs, guys aren't going to be able to basically have the chemistry that they normally would with all the new rookies or any of their new acquisitions. Stafford doesn't really have to worry about that as much because he's getting all of his same guys back. I mean, he's had Galladay for 3 seasons now, Marvin Jones for several actually, like 5. Amendola for, this is his second season or third season, but Amendola is such a vet that he just is a good guy that learns the playbook, and he runs the shorter routes anyway, so it doesn't matter. But so he gets all of his guys back, and last season he finished 20th in deep ball attempts on 8 games played. He played half the season and finished 20th in deep ball attempts. Now, for those of you who are stupid, the translation for that is he throws the ball downfield just as much as anyone, if not more than anyone in the league. And it's perfect because he's got Galladay, he's got Jones, and he's got a super athletic tight end and TJ Hockenson coming into his second year. Maybe the best deep target lineup in the league. There's a few other teams that have great deep target receivers like that, but Marvin Jones is known for being the big kind of deep ball, huge play guy. Kenny Galladay is just 6'4", 215, just a massive target, and we know he's great at the deep ball. TJ Hockenson, super athletic tight end. He didn't do too much last year because rookie tight ends just don't ever do much in their rookie season. But coming into his second season, more rapport, more time, more learning the playbook. Stafford's a threat downfield, and he throws it downfield a lot. He was also 4th in fantasy points per game before his back injury. And now people are worried about the back injury, thinking it's going to end his career. You guys are nuts. Stafford has been playing injured his entire career. He's like Tony Romo. There's guys like Romo, Favre, who if they're injured, it does not matter. They'll play through the injury, they'll struggle, and they'll get the job done looking like they're playing just as healthy as anyone else in the league. I mean, he's just one of those grinders, those guys that just grits it out. The back injury, I am not worried about at all. He's not injury prone. Do not think he is. I'm a Lions fan. I've been paying closer attention to Stafford than maybe any other quarterback in the league. Because of that, he's a grinder. 4th in fantasy points per league, 5th in fantasy points per drop back. So every time he's dropping back, he's very efficient in getting you fantasy points, and they're 14th in dropbacks in the league. Now, those stats are also factored in the dropbacks when they had Jeff Driscoll and David Blow, guys who were not throwing the ball as much. What this essentially, the point that I'm trying to get across is that Stafford throws the ball downfield a lot. When he throws the ball downfield a lot, he's very efficient in it because every time he drops back, he's converting to fantasy points. And with those deep ball targets, he's got some of the best receivers in the game to complete those deep ball targets. I don't see any reason why anyone should be off Stafford unless they're contemplating the injury. And if that's the case, just hope and pray to God that they break one of their ankles the next day because it's ridiculous. I mean, they should sustain the injury that they're worried about Stafford getting because they have no idea what they're talking about. No, I'm just kidding. That's a little ruthless. But point is, I'm very high on Stafford. I love Stafford. I'm targeting Stafford in just about every single mock draft I'm doing, and I'm doing an absurd amount of mock drafts. I only post once a week. I can post more if you guys like, but figured I don't want to just inundate you guys with mock drafts, like other stats and stuff, really get me to deep dive into the numbers and whatnot. But in short, I love Stafford. Target him. Look for him in the later rounds because guys aren't taking him even as their QB1, so in one quarterback leagues, you literally might be able to get Stafford in the 11th or 12th round. Mind blown. Makes no sense. Third guy who I differ from an ADP, and this one I don't differ a ton from, but it kind of goes back to Deshaun Watson where it's the high-profile quarterbacks where even 2 or 3 spots makes all the difference. And the guy I'm talking about is Kyler Murray. He's currently going off the board as the QB5. I have him as the QB3, and I have absolutely no question that he should be the QB3. I mean, for me, it's Mahomes, Lamar, Kyler. And while Mahomes and Lamar are kind of in a tier of their own, I think that Kyler Murray, a step below, is in a tier of his own as well. And the numbers really point to that being the case also, and that no one else is really with him. Let's go over why. So first off, he's 9th in pass attempts last season. He's 9th in deep ball targets. And remember how good DeAndre Hopkins is at the deep ball when we talked about with Deshaun Watson? Kyler Murray is, like I said, 9th in deep ball targets, and if he's got one of the best receivers in the league at converting those deep ball targets, everything is just going to get raised through the roof for Kyler Murray and just Arizona as a whole. And maybe the most important stat for quarterbacks, or just category of stats, the rushing ability. He's top 4. Top 4, not top 5, top 10. He's top 4 in every single rushing category. That at least matters for fantasy. Rush attempts per game, rushing yards, rush yards per attempt, Every time I have to do these videos, I always have to burp, and I always try to mask it by kind of just like talking through it, but maybe I should just let them just fucking fly and just start letting burps go like left and right. No, I probably won't do that. But like I said, I only have 2 spots difference between the 5 where he's going at and everyone else's drafts and the 3 spot where I have him ranked. But I just think it's like, I don't know who you could be drafting over him. Prescott, Wilson, like Deshaun Watson maybe. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to me when he's top 4 in every single rushing category. He's basically, aside from Lamar, the best rushing quarterback in the league. On top of the fact that he has a plethora of weapons. DeAndre Hopkins. Not much else needs to be said. Christian Kirk, they say every year I think it's either 4 or it's 6. I can't remember. It's either 4 or 6 teams have 2 wide receivers finish in the top 20. I think it's 4. Arizona, I wouldn't question if that happened. Like if Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins finished in the top 20, I wouldn't be mind blown. I mean, Christian Kirk is a great talent. He's super athletic. Coming out, he was one of the most highly touted, wide receivers. I don't know. I can't think of the word. When he was coming out of college. This is his 3rd season, so I guess 2 or 3 seasons ago, however you do the math. But basically, I love Kyler Murray this year. I mean, like I said, if there's QBs when I was talking about Deshaun who are in the upper echelon that I would undoubtedly reach for if they presented the right value. Like in the 6th, no, maybe not the 6th. Yeah, probably actually 6th, 7th, especially if he somehow fell to the 8th round, take Kyler Murray. If he's there, actually, we'll just stick with the 6th round. If he's there in the 6th round, take Kyler Murray in the 6th round. He shouldn't be there. He's my quarterback 3. If he's there, you should absolutely get him. I don't reach for quarterback in literally any mock draft that I ever do, or just any real draft when I actually do have them, but Kyler Murray, is a guy who, if he fell to me at the 6th round, unquestioned. Like, I am snapping that up faster than anything else. Freaking picking up jacks. The next quarterback who I have is Jimmy Garoppolo. He's currently going up the board as the QB 20. I have him as the QB 26. I am not high on Jimmy Garoppolo at all. I'm not targeting him at all this year. He's actually a player who I will go to say I'm avoiding Jimmy Garoppolo this year. Why, you may ask? Let's get into it. He was 29th in pass attempts last season. 29th in deep ball attempts. 27th in his average depth of target. Now, again, for you dumb people, he doesn't throw the ball, and he doesn't throw the ball when he does throw the ball downfield. He's very good, very, very good at handing the ball off and looking like a Calvin Klein model doing it. But he's not a great passer of the football. I mean, the stats prove it. He doesn't throw the ball a lot, and when he does, he doesn't even throw it downfield, which is why I think it hurts the stock of pretty much every receiving target in San Fran outside of, obviously, George Kittle, who is number 1 in yards after the catch for tight ends. He does all of his work on his own, and Deebo Samuel, who's fantastic after the catch also, and they scheme things for him. They got the bubble screens, end arounds, they involve him a lot in the rushing game. They do a lot of things to just make sure that they get the ball into their playmakers' hands, but that doesn't mean that they're targeting him downfield. So I don't love Jimmy Garoppolo because everything he's doing is these little dink and dunk screens, bubble screens, short crossing routes, little digs. I don't love Jimmy Garoppolo at all. I'm sharing with you my opinion. And my opinion is do not draft Jimmy Garoppolo. Even in a 2-quarterback league, I would stay away from him. Absolutely stay away from him. There's guys who I think have more upside than him that I ranked below him. And I just don't love Jimmy Garoppolo at all this year. What he does best is hand off the ball. There's a lot of memes, a lot of TikTok stuff going around of making fun of Jimmy Garoppolo for being the best at handing off the football and getting the credit for being a good quarterback. And it's just hilarious. I mean, that's all he's good for, is handing off the football. They have a great running back committee back there. Mostert, Coleman, Jerick McKinnon, Deebo Samuel gets usually 3-4 rushing attempts a game. Don't go after Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't love him. QB 20 for everyone else. QB 26 for me. Don't love him. Lastly, the fifth quarterback that I have here, who is currently going off as the QB 10, and I have going off as the QB 14, is Aaron Rodgers. I won't be targeting Aaron Rodgers at all this season, just like Jimmy Garoppolo. I wouldn't say this, but he's a guy who is on the fringe for me of whether or not I avoid him flat out or not. And the reason is because LaFleur clearly wants, Matt LaFleur, their head coach, second year this season, very clearly wants Rodgers out of there. In the draft, they got all the wide receivers, the most prolific wide receiver class we've ever seen, and they don't take one damn receiver. Not even one. And not only did they not take a receiver, they drafted his replacement in the first round, and then they drafted another running back in the second round. Their running back committee back there is just that, a committee. It's why I'm not as high on Aaron Jones. I actually, going through my rankings today, moved Aaron Jones down in my rankings because once just thinking about it, he was so good at scoring touchdowns last season. And I won't try to go off on too much of a tangent about Aaron Jones because it's a quarterback video. But actually, no, I won't even touch on it at all. I'll save it for the running backs video when I do this because I'll be doing the differing ADPs that I have for every position. Quarterback, obviously, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And then I'll kind of get into the defenses in a couple months because right now it's kind of tough. There's a lot more to dig through with defenses. But yeah, basically the team is just telling us that they don't like Aaron Rodgers. They don't want Aaron Rodgers there. He's not a good leader. He's not a guy that LaFleur wants to be in the locker room long term, although Rodgers wants to play into his 40s. And Aaron Rodgers hasn't been the fantasy quarterback that we all kind of just think of when we hear his name since really his MVP season. I mean, he hasn't finished inside the top, I think it is 8 since that MVP season back in 2014. So he's finishing outside the top 8 almost every single season, yet guys are constantly taking him inside the top 10 when the numbers just don't support it. I mean, last year he finished as, I think, the QB 9. He was either 9 or 10. I think it was 9. But he had a game where he dropped 48 points, where he threw 5 touchdowns and then I think ran one in. Or no, he threw 4 touchdowns and then... No, he did. He threw 5 touchdowns and then ran another one in or something like that. He had 5 or 6 total touchdowns, absolutely blew up his total fantasy points and blew up his overall ranking and just finished on the season because of that one huge game. You take out that game, he's outside the top 12. And I don't love Aaron Rodgers. I have him outside my top 12. I think he's going to finish as a QB2. In a 1 QB league, I would absolutely not target Aaron Rodgers, at least as your starting QB. In 2 QB leagues, take Aaron Rodgers. It's a good second quarterback to have. But as far as 1 QB leagues go, non-superflex leagues, stay away from Aaron Rodgers. That's what I'll be doing. That's just my opinion. I don't love Aaron Rodgers, though, and the team is very clearly telling us that they don't love Aaron Rodgers. They want to run the ball, and they want to get him out of there because, obviously, they would want him there if they drafted weapons to kind of help him out rather than drafting his replacement. So guys, those are the 5 QBs who my rankings differ than the ADPs of you guys most from, at least according to Fantasy Pros. The ADPs I got are from Fantasy Pros, but and it's also where I do my mock drafts on. And yeah, so I hope you guys kind of take my advice on some of these guys. Like I said, higher on Stafford, lower on Jimmy G, lower on Aaron Rodgers, higher on Murray, lower on Deshaun Watson. I said those all out of order, and yeah, but that doesn't matter. So yeah, guys, those are my top 5 QBs who my rankings different from the ADP most from. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys got some insight. If you did, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. It'd be sick, mean a lot to me. I have fun doing these, so I'm going to keep doing them whether anyone's watching or not. But this is research that I do on my own, just for my own fantasy leagues, because I'm a fantasy nerd. and scumbag. Like, I'm a degenerate fantasy player, I guess you could call me. But so I just take my research and I just put it out on YouTube because it's fun for me. But anyway, I'm just rambling now. You guys are probably definitely getting sick of my ass. Morning Wood, stay hard.